Hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to be comparing the F-15 with the F-16. Now, this is probably something you've seen quite a bit of as far as like on online forums where people arguing over the efficacy of one platform or the other. So I thought that we could use command modern operations as a way to kind of test their different capabilities and see which one of the two actually can do what they actually claim to do. Again, keep in mind some of the information here is not going to be information that we can actually go deep into because it's just limited by the actual simulation itself. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at these two aircraft. So first of all, we have the F-15A. This is, again, the classic version. This thing first came out in 1977. This was designed to be basically an all-weather, day or night interceptor aircraft. Basically, the story for this one goes, if you want to believe it, that there was some satellite footage of the MiG-25, which the Americans believed to be this unbelievably powerful super fighter that was basically going to dominate everybody. So they spent millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to literally build the most ridiculously powered fighter they could ever do. While they were working on that, they quickly realized that these aircraft, which I think were about $30 million each at the time, were just going to be a bit too expensive to have a lot of. And the other problem, of course, is you had our NATO allies over in, again, Europe, who are going to be sitting there going, well, that's nice that you made an aircraft that we can't afford. Can you do something else for us? Entered the lightweight fighter competition, which resulted in the F-16. Now, the interesting thing here is not only was the F-16 one of the finalists for the lightweight fighters, but there's actually a derivative, something called the F-20, which was the Tiger Shark, which if you've ever seen a picture of it, it looks very distinctively like the F-16 because it was basically an F-5 that had been upgraded for those purposes as well. So the F-16 came out basically as the cheap version of the F-15. The hope here was we can give one fighter that anybody can just sort of grab and it'll be kind of good to go. Didn't have to be too good at anything. Again, when it first came out, it had a little bit of air-to-ground capability, had a little bit of air-to-air capability. The radar, I kid you not, if you've ever seen those videos from back in the 80s, was like this little tiny CRT that basically stood between your legs. There was absolutely nothing to it. So let's go ahead and take a look at these two aircraft just from the database perspective before we start doing our test. First things first, on the F-15, this is a big aircraft. If you've ever been to an air show and seen one of these things, they are big, they are loud. This particular version can weigh up to 25,400 kilograms. Again, we're talking the A model here. Things change. And taking a look over the A land here with the F-16, you can see this thing maximum is 19,200. Now, what will probably surprise you here is that the F-15's payload is 7,260 versus the F-16's, which isn't that much different. But one of the biggest difference with payload is the fact the F-15 has no air-to-ground capability whatsoever. If you actually were to come down here into stores, you could see that our early version of this aircraft could only carry Sparrows and Sidewinders, whereas our F-16 already could start carrying Mavericks, it could start carrying different types of nuclear weapons, it could do cluster bombs, it could also do Mark 82s and Mark 84s. Big difference. All right, let's take a look at some of the other details here. First things first, with the A model of the F-16, you can take a look just really quickly that the agility is a 4.9, and it is a relatively small aircraft. The F-15, this really surprises people, believe it or not, it was not as agile as the F-16 when it first came out. Remember, with an F-16, you have relaxed static stability, which gives you unbelievable handling as far as how many Gs you can pull quickly and easily. You also have fly-by-wire controls, and you also had a really, really neat little seat that was inclined backwards at a significant angle in order to make G-forces more tolerable. Taking a look too back and forth, we can see that the climb rate on the F-15A is actually only 72,000 feet per minute against 95,000 for the F-16. Remember, the F-15A has two engines to the F-16's one. They actually use the same engine. Damage on the flip side, of course, you can take a look real quickly that our F-15 is significantly more durable than our F-16. All the other details are basically the same. Coming down to avionics, an F-16, of course, this is an A model, had not the world's greatest radar. An AN/APG-66, it was okay. And my money, okay, this is like a cheap, we're just going to throw this in the front and hope everything works out all right. The F-15's radar, on the flip side, is a very sophisticated piece of electronic engineering. It has all sorts of really, really fancy different modes on it. You can see that it's on the same operating band. It has almost double the range. Also notice on this particular aircraft, the F-15, that we've got really, really good radar warning technology and built-in DECM. The F-16, what do we got? We got an eyeball, and we have a really old-school RWR, and that's about it. Internally, of course, the F-15 packs a good old-fashioned M61A1, and guess what? We've got one of those too. The only difference is that the F-16 started with chaff and flare by default. The F-15 did not. So it's going to be kind of interesting. All right, let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit more. You can see, obviously, the F-16 carries a lot. Big difference here is our ranges involved. Our F-16 is a small aircraft. It does not have nearly the range capability of the F-15. But again, it's going to be cheaper to operate because it only carries a third of the fuel. Scrolling down here, you can see how we have a little more electronics. And signatures. Take a look at the F-15. You can see that we have a really, really, really large, as far as a 7.81 decibels. We're a gigantic airplane. There's no stealth here. The F-16 on the flip side, while not a stealth aircraft, is about half of the total detection ability. Scrolling down here, you can see both of these sets have, pretty much standard equipment. The only differences are good old-fashioned F-16 has a bomb sight, which is amazing, the death dot, as everybody calls it. We also have fly-by-wire, which is going to make it even better in a dogfight. Engines, notice, are the same. The only difference between these two, of course, is the fact that our F-15, or I should say F-16 over here, only has one of these two engines. Scrolling all the way to the bottom, look at the difference in fuel capacity. So looking at these side by side, you're probably sitting there going, okay, so it looks to me like the F-15 is just kind of almost like a preview version of the F-16 with more range. Well, you'd be pretty right. And now what got interesting is with the initial versions of these aircraft, again, this aircraft was half of the price of one of these aircraft. So we're basically getting a little bit better performance in exchange for not having nearly as much range as the F-15. So obviously, time moved on. Our initial version of the F-16, which was fairly limited, got upgraded. And the one everybody always thinks of is the C model. Of course, with the F-15, it also got upgraded to its own version of the C model. Now notice the F-15, I should say F-16, has so many different block numbers. Block 10, block 15, block 30, 40, 50, 52. And each one of these was an upgraded version of the F-16 itself. The platform didn't change much, but the electronics certainly did. Now, our F-15 on the flip side kept the platform basically the same. The only big difference is we got a much, much better radar a little bit later on, as well as the capability to carry out different types of weapons, such as the newer Sparrow, or, as everybody really, 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 really loves, you have everybody's favorite, your AMRAAMs, and the older version of them. Our F-16 on the flip side, as time kind of evolved, yeah, we got to add on all that stuff as well. But one of the big differences is, let's go ahead and grab one of these CGs, is the fact that our air-to-ground capabilities grew like crazy. Whereas the F-15, basically, this is all you got. The F-16 suddenly could pack the HARM missile, which is a very, very impressive weapon, and it's going to be very cool to play with a little later on, as well as all these other armaments that pretty much go down the roof. Look at this. The 1999 version of this can pack all these laser-guided bombs, CBUs, everything you could possibly need, plus all the air-to-air weapons. Our F-15 on the flip side is sort of left in the dust. Now, some of you are probably going, well, wait a minute. Well, the F-16 kept evolving and getting more and more crazy stuff on the bottom. The F-15 pretty much only stuck to air-to-air. Yeah, but a little while later, you got this thing called an F-15E, known as the Strike Eagle. Now, this is an interesting aircraft because basically they took the F-15, put somebody in the back seat who could basically run the avionics, but kept everything else the same. So now suddenly you had an F-16 with an F-15 with the capability of carrying everything the F-16 could carry. Now, this thing first came out during the Gulf War, and this actually, one of these got shot down over one of the engagements, tapped by an SA-6, most likely. Now, this one, on the other hand, just taking a look at these side by side, pretty much exactly the same setup. Actually, if anything, the F-15 has a slight edge as far as some of the weirder bombs because it's such a bigger aircraft. Now, if we go back up to the agility at the top, you'll notice that the later versions of the F-15 actually started to catch up to the F-16 as far as that raw agility goes. And you can see that, again, things kind of evened out a little bit. So, of course, there's some evolutionary stuff with the F-16, too. You've got some pretty crazy versions, such as if I want to type in Block 60. Take a look at this one. This version of the F-16 has got these funky little fuel tanks right here. This aircraft is insane. It has a better radar than any version of the F-15. It has an attack flare built directly in. It can carry everything, including the harpoon, which is insane. Not to mention, there's another version of the F-16, which unfortunately was never built, called the F-16XL. It's basically an F-16 with this cranked wing, which can carry just as much as one of those F-15Es was going to be capable of. Keep in mind, this never actually came into existence, so what it actually could do, we never actually got to find out. But this aircraft ended up replacing this version. Okay, enough of looking at the numbers. Let's actually try this. So the first test I like to do is to test to see if the aircraft can do what it was designed to do. So let's go ahead and get ourselves a MiG-25. I'm going to go ahead and flip its radar on, and I'm just going to have it kind of cruise in our general direction. First thing I'm going to do is get myself one of these handy-dandy F-16As. Keep in mind, an F-16A is like a daytime kind of basic fighter with a little bit of air-to-ground capability. It's not really supposed to be that great at anything. But, it's kind of fun to test anyway. Let's test it. Notice, all we could do is we could carry a couple Sidewinders, and that was it. So I'm going to go ahead and face this direction. I'm going to go ahead and flick my radar on, and let's do it to it. So we're kind of cruising around. We got some rumors. Oh, what's this? Go ahead and engage, and let's see what happens here. Cruising around, getting close. We don't know what it is. We know it's got a fire controller, and we're already being attacked. Notice the F-16 had no difficulty at all acquiring this aircraft, actually fairly early on. You can see that that missile's kind of tracking towards us, and we're going to go get defensive. Remember, the F-16 has tremendous capability to pull Gs, so it's just going to swing right back around. Oh, 2 more missiles. I don't think this is going to go well. Oh, splash. And our F-16 is annihilated by the MiG-25. Does not surprise me in the slightest. Again, remember, the MiG-25 is a long-range, high-speed interceptor. The F-16 is basically a little tiny dogfighter. Did not work. Let's go ahead and try out the F-15A this time. And again, this is the one we were just talking about. And this is the A model. This is not the fancy C model. We still have a pretty good radar, but we don't have anything excessively good on this version. Remember, we don't have the agility of an F-16, but we do have some pretty good electronics. So let's see if that makes any difference. Well, we've already acquired our fancy pants MiG-25. We're going to go ahead and order our attack. Zooming in, look at notice. We were able to acquire this target from a much longer range. It's almost 65 nautical miles away. You're talking F-14 distances here. Getting a little closer. The MiG-25 is probably acquiring us too. And we're already been launched on again. Remember, this aircraft was designed to destroy this aircraft from the ground up. So let's see exactly how this would play out. Getting a little bit closer here. Okay. Oh no. This is going to go really, really poorly for F-15. Nope, both missiles went kind of wide, which means the MiG is going to be turning back into us. Fire a couple more. Oh, this is going to be one of these kind of fights. Oh, it's tracking. And the F-15 was destroyed. So you can see that from a straight-up, beyond visual range battle, that even though they were designed to destroy each other, again, it had no ability to do so. So how does that compare against the later versions of this aircraft? Well, let's go take a look. So I'm going to myself an F-16 CM Block 52. This is kind of like my go-to for anybody who's seen my channel before. We're going to go ahead and load ourselves down with some of the heaviest and greatest stuff we can get our hands on. Face this direction. Go ahead and flip on our radar. Notice the difference in quality of radar from that A model. This thing has a tremendously wide reach. We've already detected, using our radar warning receiver, there's a MiG-25 out there. We start to accelerate immediately, getting a little closer, getting a little closer. There he is. We've already launched. Now notice, even at this incredible distance of 65 nautical miles or so, the F-16 was able to acquire the MiG-25. Keep in mind, a MiG-25 is a very big airplane. So some people get that a little confused. Oh, MiG-25 is giving its reply. Hopefully that's a radar-guided weapon. MiG-25 is ducking, and it gets slapped out of the sky with the Block 52 Falcon. So, okay, so obviously things got better. What happens when we try that exact same experiment with a modern version of an F-15? I would expect the result to be pretty much the same. But again, we'll experiment. Go ahead and get ourselves some heavy AMRAAMs here. Again, the AMRAAM is really the reason why we're so darn successful here. Look at the radar range on the F-15. Notice it's a much tighter beam than the F-16. Remember, this is not a multi-purpose aircraft. This is basically a one kind of size fits all. We're going to go ahead and lock on to their handy-dandy target over there. Remember, that's the MiG-25. Getting a little closer. There it is. Let's see what distance we acquired it. About 85 nautical miles. About 15 nautical miles farther out than our F-16 was able to do so. So this is pretty good so far. F-15 is locking ourselves up. Superest thing you can do here is fire less than 2 of these when you do this. All right, 2 away. Notice the crank. The missiles are leading perfectly. That MiG-25's... Oh, MiG-25's fired its response. Uh-oh. Oh, no. This is going to end poorly. No problem. So you can see straight up against each other, the earlier versions were actually not great at achieving what they were designed to do, which is actually pretty scary if you think about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at other capabilities of this aircraft. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and activate a little intercept mission. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go activate this. This is a bunch of Sukhoi 27Ss. These are very, very, very capable aircraft. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a single F-16 at them. And you're probably sitting there going, well, this is probably going to go pretty bad for F-16, buddy. You'd be surprised. Now, one of the neat features of the later versions of the F-16 is the ability to engage multiple targets simultaneously. It's just a slick little feature. You probably heard TWS. The F-14 also had this capability. But again, the F-14, we'll take a look at that in a different video. So we're going to go ahead and flip this thing on. And again, we're only going to be relying on what the F-16 itself can see. We're not going to be relying on anything. There's no long-range radar. We're not going to be able to do an ambush. This is just what the F-16 can do on its own here. And I think it's really important that you can kind of see what that's going to look like. Bingo. Go ahead and order my attack. Now we can see the F-16 immediately has the ability to launch more than one missile at a time, and each one of those missiles is actually targeting a different target. This is a very, very slick feature. So the missiles come rushing in here. You can see all the Sukhoi 27s. They've already responded with probably an Alamo missile, would be my expectation. They immediately start scattering. Again, this is a single F-16 doing this. This isn't like a pair of F-16s doing this. Now, if I was a smart guy, I'd go ahead and make this F-16 retreat. Because at this point, the F-16 is going to be relying on just its agility in order to get close enough to basically get that cheap shot on it. Because otherwise, they're just going to cut him right down. So we'll see what happens here. The F-16 gets in range. He's going to fire his first. This is his Sidewinder. Oh, those Sukhois are making things interesting for him. And that Sidewinder's going to miss. Uh-oh. Now there's a Sukhoi 27 behind him. There's the other Sidewinder. Oh, boy. It's raining missiles now. He's going to have to go for the air-to-air version now. Whoa, jeez. 2 Sukhoi 27s raining missiles down on this poor F-16. Oh, this is going to go poorly. Notice the F-16, by the way, ducked down to about 80 feet off the ground. It's an amazing defensive reaction this aircraft has. Very few aircraft are able to safely engage at that distance. F-16 climbs back up. Oh, now he's getting gunfire. Come on, F-16. Ooh. F-16 took his first hit. Oh, he's probably smoking. The Sukhoi 27's reeling him in. Passes his buddy. He's got to get out of there. Notice the F-16 can literally just outturn these guys. All right, F-16's pulling all sorts of nastiness here. Looks like the other Sukhoi 27's heading home. And our F-16 is going to head home too. Wow. That was rough, but incredible just how well it was able to kind of hang on its own. So let's go ahead and try that again, but this time with an F-15 so that you can see the differences between the two platforms. I'm going to go ahead and activate this. Switch this over here, switch to. Grab ourselves an F-15. We're going to grab an F-15 CM. Grab this one right here. We'll go ahead and load it down with as many AMRAAMs as it thinks it can carry. Point in this general direction, flip its radar on, and let's see if there's a difference. Now remember, the F-15 was optimized for air-to-air combat, which means its radar is going to be slightly better optimized for that purpose as well. Well, let's see if it actually makes any difference in our engagement here. We've already acquired them. Notice the range we were able to acquire them at. That is so different. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and assign one of these each. And that should be enough to get us started. Let's find out what happens. Remember, the Sukhoi 27 and the F-15 are basically buddies. So at an incredibly staggeringly long range, this is about 50 nautical miles away, the F-15 has already fired 4 AMRAAMs, each missile independently targeted at one of the Sukhois. Of course, the Sukhois saw that coming and responded. It's most likely an R-27 or something like that. And it is now raining AMRAAMs. Nope, didn't quite do it. It's got to spin back around. We know this is Sukhoi 27 to our right, but we have to require them. The F-16's much, much wider range as far as vision goes would be helpful a lot here. It looks like we're going to get into a really, really aggressive dogfight, but the Sukhoi 27 is just raining death on this poor guy right now. Easy, easy. He's got him beaming. He's trying to keep him in the notch. Neither of those missiles look good. The F-15 just can't fire again. Again, it's just so badly out-missiled right now. None of those missiles look like they're going to do. Looks like we're going to get into a really, really aggressive dogfight here. Less than 100 feet off the ground. Sukhoi 27's coming up behind him. F-15 pulls into him. Ooh, takes his first hit. Chances are that was an R-73. Our F-15 is not looking so good. F-15, they get into a bit of a turning fight here. I have a feeling this is going to be several turns before they can do anything to each other. Ooh, tries to get that frontal shot there. Speed up time a little bit. They're both basically even matched, but you can see that our Sukhoi is having no issue just taking pot shots every once in a while when they pass. Now, our F-15, of course, is going to have to peace out at this point because it's the only way he's ever going to be able to safely get out. But surprise, parting gift. Those AIM-9s have some stupid ability to fire off bore sight. Ooh. There's another one. By the way, the late versions of the F-15 had helmet-mounted sights, which allowed that kind of over-the-shoulder sort of shot. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so the last test I like to do as far as air-to-air capabilities goes is I like to test the F-16 directly against the F-15. Now, you're probably sitting there going, well, that's not really a contest. Well, we'll see. We shall see. So I'm going to get myself one of these handy-dandy classic F-16s. This is an A model, because we don't want to test the later versions, because they just have AMRAMs. They're just going to AM-spam each other away. And I'm going to go ahead and grab myself one of these handy-dandy, whoops. You got to be careful when you do that, because you can always bust things when you do it. Go ahead and switch over to the other side. Go ahead and get themselves an F-15A. And I expect the F-15A to be extremely successful for the simple reason that the F-15A at this time still had long-range weapons. The F-16 does not. So they'll go ahead and turn towards each other. I'm sure it'll only take them a moment to identify where the two persons are. F-16's radar, again, was not great at the time. Meanwhile, our F-15, with its pretty solid radar, instantaneously acquires our F-16. I'm going to go ahead and order the attack. Switch back over to the other side. We've also acquired the F-15 at about the same distance. No surprise. Remember, the F-15 is bigger. So our poor F-16 is already getting probably Sparrow missiles rained down upon it. Remember, the F-16, though, has a tremendous ability to pull Gs and dodge. And it's gone. And that was easy, right? So let's go ahead and open things up again. I was a little disappointed in that myself. So what about as a dogfight? Well, let's test that theory. So I'm going to go ahead and get my F-15A out again. Again, we're going to load it down with these nice heavy-duty Sparrow missiles and kind of heading it in this direction. But this time, what I'm going to do differently is I'm going to set it up so that our F-16 is a little bit closer. We'll start them at 10 nautical miles away to give the F-16, a little bit of a shot at this. Again, this is sort of the modern version of the F-16, the non-modern, so we'll see exactly how this goes. Now, this, I think, is going to be a little bit different. I expect the F-16 to actually be able to hold its own against an F-15. Remember, this is the earlier version of the F-15, not the later version. So he's going to go ahead and pull in. He's going to spot that F-15 pretty much right away. Or the F-15 is going to spot him right away. That's usually how these things go. Nope. They're basically sitting there scrambling, trying to identify. Oh, there it is. They identified each other at the same exact time. I'm going to go ahead and order my A model of the F-16 to engage. I'm going to grab my F-15. I'm going to go order him to engage. Our poor F-15 now is going to be sitting there scrambling, clicking all sorts of switches, basically trying to get to the correct mode desperately, as the F-16 starts to accelerate up to attack speed. Go ahead now, make this a little bit bigger. Might have a little bit of fun with this, right? All right, here we go. F-15 sitting there going, he's entering my minimum range. F-16, again, this is the A model. This is the old version. And then there is the merge. F-16 immediately starts pulling to the right. Remember, the F-16 can pull 9 Gs all day, every day. Our F-15, of course, is out of sight for a second, but looks like, based on what we can see, he's pulling to the left. That F-16 is really putting on the Gs, trying to bring around, come on the back side of him. Go ahead and pull it to the side so you can see it both sides. F-16, look at how tight that circle is. And he's already got a Sidewinder on the way to our F-15. F-15, by this point, is out of the fight. Amazing difference. Unbelievably different. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do air-to-ground. Now, you're probably sitting here going, wait a minute. The F-15 has no air-to-ground ability. It's all right. We'll be doing it with the F-15E. And I want to show you the differences kind of side by side of those two aircraft as well. So for this purpose, I'm going to get myself an F-16CM Block 52, which is, like I said, it's my standard. It's also the one in DCS for those of you who like to try this. And I'm going to get myself one of these handy-dandy harms, and I'm going to get myself a couple of JDAMs. Okay, so now what we're going to try to do is attack my little island down here in the bottom right. I'm going to go ahead and flip on my radar real quick. And I'm also going to flip on the radar of the island in order to make things a bit more challenging for us. Again, I don't want to make it too easy. My objective here is to go ahead and identify anything on that island and then engage it with my weapons. I'm carrying a single harm, which is something I cannot carry on the F-15. So go ahead and take off. We'll start getting in range. I immediately have acquired this long track radar. It's a very tempting target for our actual harm weapon, but I don't want to get too close to the island without being able to reconnoiter it a little bit here. Now, the F-16, this particular version, does have a really nice targeting pod. It also possesses some really, really good technology as far as being able to use its radar. But notice, the only thing I've been able to reliably detect so far has been this long track. That's it. I'm going to go ahead and bring myself down a few feet here, back to about 12,000. I don't want to be up too high. There is a mountain range here, and I want to be able to duck behind it in case things go downhill. So I'm swinging around here, swinging around like this. Kind of go level the thing back off again. I'll go ahead and destroy the radar. Don't waste the harm on it. I'll use a JDAM. Again, a single Mark 82 is going to be more than enough to make this guy's day a little bit miserable. Checking to make sure all my weapons are set. Surface weapons looks good. Awesome. All right, let's get a little closer, a little bit closer. And there, we're already getting shot at. Haha! Apparently things weren't as easy as we thought they were. So F-16, of course, is going to dock to stupidly low altitudes, desperately trying to get underneath those weapons. And he actually did a beautiful job of it. 16 starts coming nice and wide. We'll go ahead and adjust his attack here. Remember, you have to have a certain minimum altitude in order to use those weapons. Coming back up. Keep in mind, our JDAMs are fairly limited as far as range goes. I need to see that, but it's all right. Continue along, getting close. I'm sure we're going to get 2 more missiles launched at us. Bingo. Ah, I can't see where the missiles came from, though. That's the problem. So we're going to have to duck back down. Looks like we got our JDAM off anyway. Get down, get down, get down. And there's another missile, and it slapped her. Ah, there goes our SDB. Now we're going to go ahead and fire a blind harm there. And fire another one of those. All right, stay nice and low. Now, the fun thing with the harm is that would basically be a snapshot harm. Let's see if it does anything useful here. It looks like it's going a little wide. Ah, the harm did not track. So unfortunately, we're being shot at by a very, very modern version of the SA-17. So our particular attack here was an utter failure. Our F-16 is now going to have to return back home and think about his life's choices a little bit. Again, we couldn't really carry that many weapons in that particular engagement scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and now reset everything again real fast. I'll go ahead and turn on the radar real quick. Switch back over onto this side, and I'll give myself an F-15E. Now, this aircraft, like I said, is basically the a lot of Fs. This is an F-15, and basically it's been upgraded. One of the things I like about this version is, though it lacks the harm, it does have the SDB, which is a really, really slick weapon that basically enables it to drop quite a few of these really teeny tiny little bombs that are very, very stealthy. The other thing we're going to see with this particular aircraft is the differences in quality of radar. So I'm going to flip the radar on again. It's going to start looking around. We've immediately acquired our long track there. And now notice, the moment we got into range of all these targets, we instantaneously were able to go ahead and identify them. Now, let's do a little bit of intelligence work here. And again, this is what you'd have to do if you knew you did not have a harm on board. Let's go ahead and take a look at red real quick. What do we got for facilities? They have an SA-11. Let's see, the maximum range of an SA-11 on a good day. I'm just taking a look real quick. Let's see here. Range, 25 nautical miles. So 25 nautical miles is going to be our absolute maximum range that we can fire at. Anything before that will give the weapon too much time to work from. So 25 nautical miles, that's about 1,300. Let's see here. What is the speed of one of those? 1,400 divided by 25. Okay, so that's going to be about 30 seconds. So we want to reduce it to that, which is going to be, okay, so we need to fire at about 15 nautical miles away if we're going to have any hope of hitting any of these targets, which is going to be tough for us. So we're definitely going to have to kind of go around the back and then come in and hit them from the other side. So let's go ahead and set it up so it's exactly about 15 nautical miles away. It's going to be right about there. Slide it to the right. I'm just doing some quick little math here. All right, at any point, by the way, we could start firing, but the reason we're not is because we know that the moment we start getting down to whatever altitude, that stupid SA-11 is going to start tearing us a new one. So we're going to go ahead and now use a little bit of strategery here and kind of go nice and wide. And then we're going to spin around, get within the minimum distance, fire, and then get the heck out of here. Okay. All right, so we need to get within, like I said, about 15 nautical miles is probably going to be the absolute minimum that we can get within before we can start firing. So that's going to be right there. I'm going to go ahead and leave ourselves a note. Control fire. All right, looks good. Stay nice and low. We're going to do a pop-up attack. So I'm going to bring the F-15 all the way down to minimum altitude here. Nice and low, nice and low. We're almost within range. We're going to do our pop-up. And then we're going to let everybody have it. Remember, because we're an F-15E, we can carry so many more weapons than the F-16. But like I said, we lack the harm. Not that that harm did anything for us last time. All right, we're going to do a maximum afterburner attack. Get ourselves lots of altitude. Remember, we've already declared our attacks at this point. Climbing, climbing. We need to get at least 10,000 feet. We're already getting launched at. And enjoy those. We did not launch all of our weapons, but what we did do is we did irritate him pretty badly. All right, notice we can shoot these weapons basically over the shoulder, which is insane if you think about it. And we have one more to launch. We got to get low, get low, get low, get low, get low, get low. Nice. I'm swinging around this way. We've got to go ahead and get that last missile out. Notice the SA-11 is having no difficulty at all with this process. One of the fun strategies is to actually pair an F-15 and an F-16 up. Have the F-16 basically suck up the early missiles and then use the F-15 to kind of do the fun part. All right, he's got to get his last weapon off now. He's got to get up to altitude to do so. What are you doing? All right, it looks like he has run out of ammunition. Sweet! Let's have some fun now. Well, if that's going to be the case, in which case I'm just going to come down here and we're going to shoot you up the old-fashioned way. All right, let us attack. All right, so now I'm just going to order this guy to kind of go do his thing. He's going to drop down to super low altitude. Let's unassign him, and let's just go ahead and use our freaking cannon. Ha! It's got to do some strafing runs on the radar site until we run out of ammunition anyway. A couple more of those. Let's go ahead and set auto, because yeah, he's struggling a little bit to get in range. You're going to be firing, man? Come on. All right, he seems to be having a little bit of difficulty with this. Let's go like that. Is he going to take a shot this time, or is he going to ignore me? He's going to ignore me. Go back home. Okay, so you can see the big difference here was our F-15 with a slightly more modern stealth weapon had an easier time of destroying it. It also had a much, much better radar as far as being able to detect all those different things. Now, there's one more thing we're going to take a look at, and then we'll go ahead and kind of call the video. At this point, I think you have a pretty good idea of what the differences between the two are. And that is, what are the fancy versions of the F-16 capable of? So what I'm actually going to do really, really quickly is I'm going to go ahead and grab myself a Block 60 of the F-16, which is this funky UAE version with this unbelievable capability of basically having everything on board. So we can carry all the GBUs. Again, I really rather have a JDAM rather than a laser because that means we're going to have to get close to it. But just to get a little bit of revenge today, I'm going to go ahead and grab this aircraft. And I just want to show you just how good the radar is on this darn thing. And again, this is just an F-16 with an improved radar and some extra avionic bonuses. Notice we've already acquired everything we needed to do. So the first harm is going to go right over here. And the second harm, of course, is going to be reserved for that silly target that we saw just a minute ago. Notice we've already been able to reliably acquire this. Ha 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 ha. Eat harm. Ready? Harm away. Now he's got to get a little closer. He's not emitting. That's my mistake. I'll go flip back to him real quick. Go ahead and turn that radar on. There we go. Eat missile. Of course, that means our SA-11 is going to immediately start radiating. Again, that SA-11 is a tricky platform to engage. Are you sure you can? I think we're about to lose another F-16. Well, it's allocated. It just does not want to track. Oh, no. You got a missile off at the last second. It's not going to matter. Boom. All right, hopefully this video was helpful as far as seeing the difference between the F-16 and the F-15. If you're looking for the, quote, short version, notice that the F-15 is basically, at least the air-to-air models are tremendously good dogfighters, but not quite as good up close as the F-16 ever was. The other big difference is the F-16 is far more versatile, carrying just about everything in the NATO arsenal versus the F-15, even the E version, which has some of the fancy weapons, but not quite everything that it would need to do. Enjoy.